Hey guys, my name is Akiba. I'm a certified teacher turned homeschool mom. Welcome to another video. Today's video is a bit different. I'm going to read a message that one of you all sent me on Instagram because it's like a message I get a lot. And so I think this information will be helpful for a lot of people. And it has to do with a child possibly being retained in kindergarten because they're not able to read yet. So first I'm going to talk about just what I think in general about retaining kids in kindergarten for reading. And then I'm going to answer her question, which is, how do I catch my child up? So here's the message. Hi Akiba, I came across your YouTube channel a few months ago. My 5-year-old started kindergarten in August 2021. He's doing well on every subject except language arts. He is struggling with reading. His memory is incredible, which makes it easy for him to learn sight words, but he's struggling with blending words and sounding out words on his own. I'm trying my best with him at home. Some days I get frustrated because he's not catching on, not interested, or not trying. I just received a letter from his school stating that he's reading below grade level and there's a possibility that he may be retained. Would you please provide me some tips, advice on how to get my son up to par to prevent him from being retained in kindergarten? And I asked her what state because all the states are different. She replied that she is in Florida. Okay, first of all, this is a 5-year-old child. This is a baby. And if you guys have watched my earlier videos, you know that in other places where the literacy rate is much higher, like in Finland, kids don't start kindergarten until they're 7 years old. So it is developmentally appropriate for a 5-year-old not to be interested in learning how to read. There are some kids who are interested at 3 or at 4, but some might not be interested until 6 and 7. And so in our country, where we have these requirements that kids start kindergarten around age 5 and 6, it's not really up to the research that says they may not be ready for that. Secondly, the standards do not say that a child needs to learn how to read by the end of kindergarten. And so it's really frustrating for me to see kids being held back because they're behind in reading, but they really need to know how to read by the end of 2nd grade. So really the child has 2 more years to learn how to read fluently. So to me, it doesn't make sense to hold back a kindergartner who is behind. Now I looked into the Florida standards and they are really horrible. I'm so sorry if you're in Florida because Florida got rid of their Common Core. Whether you believe in like the Common Core standards or not, the current Florida standards are just so bad because I looked at reading for kindergarten and it's so vague. One of the things says like the children should know, a good number of sight words, the most frequent like sight words. And they give some examples, but you need to be specific. Like what sight words does my child need to know in order to appropriately advance to the next grade level? Because some teachers might say, here's a list of 100. Others might say, here's a list of 20. But generally when you look at it, it says that a child needs to be able to have these basic reading skills in order to pass the standards for kindergarten. It's also quite weird in Florida how they determine if a child should be retained or not. And basically the state law leaves it up to the local, not even the local district, it goes down to the school level. And that may be the case everywhere. It generally comes down to that teacher, parent, principal level. Which I think is quite unfair, and there is a lot of bias in determining whether to hold students back. Florida does have this thing where like if the child doesn't pass the standardized test for reading and in older grades, then that's what they use to determine if they're going to hold your kid back, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. But in the case of reading, it's super ridiculous because kids can learn how to read within 3 months. We know that in those countries where they start school later, where kids start at 7, it doesn't take them a year to learn how to read, right? So because I think reading is something that just with quality instruction, most children can learn how to do in a matter of months. It's just really alarming to me that they would use a standardized test that maybe is given in April or March or May to say, okay, well, they're going to fail when, well, they could learn how to read over the summer. And then what? And there are provisions in the state law. Definitely read your state law thoroughly. Don't take your school's word for it because it does say that, if a child is to be retained, the parent needs to be notified, which she was, but the school also has to prove that they've taken remediation steps to get that child to where they should be. And honestly, for us in Maryland and Baltimore, that's like a lot of documentation that goes into proving a child should be held back. And I will just say that overall, retaining a student, it never helps. It doesn't help anything. So the research shows that it's not like going to catch your child up if they do another year of what they've done this year. Another reason I think it's ridiculous to hold a kid back in kindergarten for not being able to read is because when your child gets to the first grade, there are going to be kids coming into the first grade, maybe from other districts or schools who didn't really care, or from other states who did not retain them, and they won't be able to read. Are you telling me that every first grader in Florida public schools can read? That's a lie, okay? So it really doesn't make sense to hold your particular child back when they're going to be in a class with other non-readers if you don't get this taken care of over the next few months or in the summertime. But let's move on to kind of what you can do in order to prevent your child from being retained, and then on to the reading aspect of it. Number one, if I were in a situation where I really didn't want my child retained, I would pull them out and homeschool them. And hear me out on this. You do not need to homeschool your child for the rest of the school year or for the rest of your life or for the rest of their career in order to stop a retention from happening. So we're in February now. You could pull your child out maybe just during the few weeks of testing. And if they weren't tested, then they don't have proof that they can't pull them, that they need to retain them. Another thing that you could do is if you have that ability, pull them out for the rest of the school year, get them caught up, and then put them back in for first grade. Another thing you could do is pull them out for a month or 6 weeks and just focus on reading, because it's rather sad, but we don't retain kids because they're failing science most of the time or social studies, right? The focus is really on reading and mathematics. So what you could do is you could pull out your child until you can catch them up with reading. You don't need to teach them anything else at home. Just teach them how to read for, a few weeks or a couple of months, and then put them back in. Every state is different, but don't be intimidated by the homeschool laws and statutes, because generally, even in the really heavy places like New York where they're requiring testing and all this stuff, there's ways to kind of get around it if you look and read the law and if you know the law. That's one thing that I would personally easily do if someone were saying they're going to retain my kid. I would just pull them out. And by the way, you can pull your kids out the last month of school. And they won't be able to retain them because they're ending the school year, they're at home with you. Okay, but how do we actually get this child to read? Well, it sounds like this child needs instruction in what a lot of kids who are in pre-K to even upper elementary school need, and those are the 5 pillars of reading. So that includes phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. A child needs all 5 of those things in order to become a good reader. And we're going to start with phonemic awareness. Phonemic awareness is hearing the individual smallest sounds that a word is made up of and the ability to manipulate, change, add, delete, and blend those sounds together. So what I've realized what you guys need is really a comprehensive course in teaching a child to read. This is something that I, as a teacher, never received. And I get that watching videos online, it's kind of like being a teacher where you're going to all these random professional developments, but what you really need is a here's how kids learn how to read course, and here's exactly what you should do course. So over the next few weeks, that is what I will be focused on, along with my Black history stuff. I'll be focused on putting out videos that tells you exactly what you need to do in order to teach your child to read. Because I really can't tell you in one video. I know I have a video, how to teach a child to read, and there's a lot of videos like that out there. But really, me, myself, even as a teacher, I didn't quite understand what a child needed to learn in order to know how to read. It was not until I began my own journey in teaching my eldest child how to read that I dug deep into the research and I figured out, oh, this is what a child needs to know. And once I give you that information, it's going to be so much easier for you to not get frustrated when it comes to teaching a child how to read. Because there really are just these scientific based things that you need to do one after another, some things on top of the other, in order to teach a child to read within a few months. And the best thing about it is that you can do it all for free. Now, I will be recommending a program to use, but I'll also be giving you free materials that you can use. The reason why I like programs is because it's kind of like foolproof. I don't even want to say foolproof because I use the program myself. I don't consider myself a fool, but it like literally tells you what words to say to the child so that you're not putting in extra words that's confusing them. And if you use a good curriculum for a while and if you teach your child with a good curriculum, then over time you won't even need that curriculum because the words that were in that curriculum will just come to your head. So that's why I am going to recommend a curriculum. It's not that expensive, but I do know that a lot of us have absolutely no money to spend. My mom taught us to read with absolutely no money, just a marker and paper. So it definitely can be done. So it will be a 5-video course over the next 2 weeks that will teach your child how to read. And then if we need to get more specific, I'll put the rest of the videos up on a different platform. So I hope that I've answered your question. And if I haven't, the answer to your question is that you need to learn how to teach your child how to read. And the way that you do that is by researching or watching these videos where I'm going to tell you exactly how a child learns how to read. The other option is just to give them a tutor, but tutors can be really expensive. The rate that I've heard for teaching a child how to read is about $50 an hour, and then they don't even guarantee that your child will learn how to read at the end of it. So it makes more sense just to learn yourself how to teach a child how to read. So thank you for asking the question. I don't always get to my inbox and I don't always make videos in response to questions, but I'm trying to. So feel free to keep asking whatever questions that you guys have. All right, bye-bye.